The internet is on fire, and it all started with one jaw-dropping confession from Joe Rogan himself. The man known for his raw honesty and no-filter takes just dropped a bomb that no one saw coming, a story involving political rising star JD Vance, his wife Yusha, and none other than Erika Kirk, the conservative influencer known for her pristine image and tight circle of power players. But according to Joe, that picture-perfect facade might be hiding something that could shake both the political and influencer worlds to their core. It began as a casual conversation on Rogan's podcast, or at least that's what everyone thought. The cameras were rolling. The crowd was relaxed, and Joe was in his usual no-nonsense mood until he paused, leaned forward, and said something that instantly froze the room. You ever see someone try to keep their marriage together while the whole world's watching and failing? He said. The silence was thick. His guest didn't even know how to respond. Joe smirked, sipped his drink, and added, "Let's just say JD's wife knows exactly what I'm talking about." Fans flooded the comment section within minutes. Did Joe just expose JD Vance? Wait, who's the woman? He's gotta be talking about Erika Kirk. The guesses spread like wildfire, and before long, the story had a life of its own. Screenshots, old photos, cryptic tweets, all of it resurfaced overnight, painting a picture that seemed too bizarre to be true, yet somehow too believable to ignore. According to sources close to the situation, JD's wife Yusha had been growing suspicious for weeks. Late-night messages, strange phone calls, mysterious meetings that didn't match his schedule. But what truly set her off, insiders claim, was one unexpected name flashing across JD's phone: Erika. The same Erika Kirk who'd been publicly praising Usha and JD as a model couple not long ago. Usha reportedly confronted him, but what she discovered went far beyond flirtation. It wasn't just emotional. One insider whispered, there were photos, there were recordings, and apparently, there were witnesses. As for Joe Rogan, some say he never meant to spill the secret. Others believe he knew exactly what he was doing. His cryptic tone, his timing, it all felt deliberate. And now, both the political and influencer circles are in chaos. Erika's followers are defending her fiercely, calling the rumors a setup. JD's team is reportedly in emergency meetings trying to control the narrative, while Usha has gone completely silent, refusing to appear publicly with her husband. But the real question is, why would Joe Rogan reveal this now? Was he protecting someone, settling a private score, or exposing something much bigger than an affair? Fans are desperate for answers, and what's coming next might just change everything. Because if even half of what Joe hinted at turns out to be true, this isn't just a scandal, it's the unraveling of power, trust, and the carefully crafted illusion of America's newest political golden couple. And it's only getting messier from here. The chaos that followed Joe Rogan's cryptic revelation was unlike anything fans had ever seen. Overnight, whispers turned into threads, and threads became full-blown investigations. Screenshots of old podcast appearances, charity event photos, and behind-the-scenes clips from conservative media circles began circulating across Reddit and X. Everyone wanted to know what Joe had really meant, and more importantly, who he had exposed. But inside the quiet, manicured home of JD Vance, a storm was brewing that made the internet frenzy look tame. Usha Vance had always been known as calm, composed, and impossibly loyal. Her entire image rested on that stillness. But behind that controlled smile, something had begun to crack weeks before Joe even opened his mouth. It started with small things: missed calls, unexplained trips, a name she hadn't heard before showing up in casual conversation. Erika. JD had mentioned her more than once, saying she was helping him connect with new donors, that she and her husband were organizing faith-based fundraisers for conservative leaders. But what didn't sit right with Usha was how often JD would pause before saying her name, or how he'd turn away from the room when answering her messages. One night, around midnight, Usha walked into JD's study, the faint light from his laptop reflecting on his face. He was typing fast, his eyes sharp, focused. When he noticed her in the doorway, he startled slightly and closed the screen. She tried to smile, pretending she hadn't seen it, but her voice betrayed her. "Who were you talking to this late?" she asked quietly. JD hesitated, then replied, "Just campaign stuff." Erika sent over some notes about the upcoming speech. His tone was firm, but his eyes darted away, something he rarely did. That was the moment her instinct kicked in. Usha had built her life around trust, but something told her that this wasn't just another late-night email. So she waited. The next few days, she watched carefully his phone, always face down. Sudden meetings out of town, and a strange energy whenever Erika's name came up in conversation. To the world, JD Vance was a devoted husband and family man, but inside his home, silence had become heavier than words. Meanwhile, Erika Kirk was living in her own perfectly curated world. On social media, she was the picture of poised devoted wife, successful influencer, a woman of faith. Her followers adored her, calling her the soul of modern conservatism. But behind that flawless image, rumors had started swirling. A few of her inner circle friends had noticed her sudden secrecy, her distracted manner during events, the quick glances at her phone that ended with a faint, guilty smile. "She's talking to someone," one of them whispered after a fundraiser. But not her husband. And then came the podcast. Joe Rogan's Voice.com, but loaded, sent a shockwave through their lives. When he said Jade's wife knew, everything seemed to snap into focus. Fans immediately dug into the connection, how Erika had recently appeared at the same event as JD, how she'd shared an Instagram story with the caption, "Sometimes the strongest bonds are the ones you can't explain." Suddenly, what had looked like harmless collaboration started to look like something far deeper. Usha's breaking point came 2 nights later. According to someone close to the Vance family, she had gone to bed early, but a strange buzzing sound woke her around 2 a.m. It was JD's phone, lighting up again and again with the same name, Erika. She reached for it before he could, her hands trembling. The messages weren't explicit, but they were intimate in a way that left no doubt. "You looked so calm on stage." One read, "No one could tell what we were feeling." Another said, "When you said goodbye, it felt like the end of something real." Usha's eyes blurred. Her husband had crossed a line that couldn't be unseen. JD woke to find her sitting at the edge of the bed, the phone in her hand, her face pale. "What is this?" she asked, her voice breaking. For a long moment, he said nothing. When he finally spoke, his words were quiet, almost mechanical. "It's not what you think," he said, though his tone made the lie too easy to hear. "Then tell me what it is," she demanded, "because Joe Rogan seems to know something I don't." He froze. The mention of Joe's name made his stomach twist. "That was a misunderstanding," he muttered, rubbing his temples. "He exaggerates things. It's just a rumor." But Usha didn't believe him. She stood up, her body shaking, and said, "Rumors don't come with text messages." Then she walked out, leaving JD staring at the phone, the weight of his silence pressing harder than any accusation. By morning, the internet had already picked up new threads. A journalist leaked that JD and Erika had been spotted together at a private donor retreat weeks earlier. No staff, no media, just insiders. One witness claimed they looked closer than colleagues. Another said they disappeared for hours during a power outage that conveniently cut off cameras in the main hall. When reporters reached out to Erika's camp, her assistant denied everything, saying, "Mrs. Kirk is a devoted wife and a woman of integrity." But as more pictures surfaced, even that statement began to crumble. Joe Rogan hadn't said another word about the situation, but his silence only fueled the speculation. His fans were dissecting every second of that podcast, claiming his expression had given away more than his words. "You can see it," one commenter wrote. "He knows something huge, and he's holding back." As the noise grew louder, Erika's husband, Timothy Kirk, entered the picture. Sources close to him said he'd been blindsided. He confronted Erika one night, demanding the truth. She denied it at first, saying Joe's comments were being twisted. But when he pressed further, asking why she'd deleted messages, why she'd hidden certain trips, her defenses began to crack. "It wasn't what it looked like," she said softly. "We were both lost in something we didn't understand." "You're a public figure," he snapped. "And you've put everything at risk for what? For someone else's husband." Her silence said more than words ever could. While the world speculated, the private pain of 3 people deepened behind closed doors. Usha couldn't bring herself to face the cameras. Jade's campaign staff tried to hold things together, but donors began asking questions, worried about optics. And Erika, once the darling of conservative social media, saw her followers turning on her. "So much for faith and values," one commenter. "So much for faith and values," one commenter wrote beneath her photo. Was all of it just a show? What no one knew yet was that Joe Rogan hadn't told the full story. Behind the scenes, he'd been approached by someone close to JD, who had begged him to speak up, not to expose, but to warn. Joe, known for his blunt honesty, had hesitated, but when he realized the situation was spiraling into something darker, he decided to let a hint slip on air. He never expected it to explode the way it did. As pressure mounted, JD called Joe late one evening. "You could have ruined my family," he said, his voice tense but low. Joe replied calmly, "I didn't ruin anything. I just told people what was already happening. Maybe it's time you stop pretending it wasn't." The line went dead. From that night onward, things were never the same. Usha stopped wearing her wedding ring. JD canceled appearances. Erika vanished from social media for almost a week, and Joe, though silent, had just set the stage for the next chapter in a scandal that was far from over. But what no one could have predicted was how deep this story really went. Or how many people were involved in keeping the truth buried. Because, as one insider later said, Joe didn't reveal the secret, he only cracked the surface. The night it all began felt ordinary, but behind the smiles and filtered Instagram posts, something dangerous was brewing. Mendices had been acting strange for weeks, quiet, distracted, always on his phone. Always saying he had business meetings that seemed to stretch later and later into the night. Yandi noticed it first in the smallest ways. The way he avoided eye contact when she asked simple questions. The way he changed the subject when she mentioned Tamar's name. Because yes, Tamar Braxton had recently come back into their circle through a charity collab. Or at least that's what everyone was told. What nobody knew was that the collab was just a cover. A way for Tamar and Mendices to spend time together without anyone suspecting. The chemistry had been instant. Insiders say it wasn't love at first sight, it was curiosity, temptation, and maybe a bit of revenge mixed in. It started backstage at a small event in Atlanta. Tamar was performing, Mendices was there to represent a mutual friend. And somehow they ended up talking long after the show had wrapped. She joked about how tired she was of fake love and social media husbands. And he laughed in a way that told her he understood. That one conversation turned into text messages. Those messages turned into late-night calls. And before long, they were sneaking off to meet each other in quiet corners of the city. Yandi, meanwhile, was trying to keep her family together, unaware that her husband's loyalty was slipping away. Friends close to the situation later said Mendices felt overlooked in his marriage. He wanted appreciation, validation, and excitement, all the things Tamar knew how to give. She was bold, emotional, and unpredictable. And Mendices, he was drawn to chaos like a moth to a flame. When they were together, it was electric. When they weren't, it was like withdrawal. By the time Yandi realized something was wrong, it was too late. The real breaking point came one Friday night, when Yandi showed up unexpectedly at one of Mendices' so-called studio meetings. She walked in with her phone in hand, ready to record because she already had that gut feeling. The music was playing. The lights were dim. There was Tamar sitting close to Mendices, her hand resting on his leg. The silence that followed was thick enough to choke on. Yandi's voice shook as she said, "So this is what a studio meeting looks like now." Tamar froze. Mendices tried to stand up, but it was over. Yandi turned around, tears streaming down her face, and said only one word: "Unbelievable." That night, Mendices followed her home, begging her to talk, swearing it wasn't what it looked like. But the internet doesn't wait for explanations. Someone from that studio leaked a small clip just enough to show Tamar and Mendices together, and within hours, blogs were buzzing. Mendices caught cheating, Tamar Braxton in another scandal. Fans were tearing both of them apart. Yet behind closed doors, the story was becoming even darker. Tamar wasn't backing off. She told people close to her that she and Mendices had a real connection, that it wasn't just a fling. In her mind, Yandi was the one standing in the way of something real. Over the next few days, Yandi and Mendices barely spoke. He stayed out, claiming he needed space, while she quietly started pulling away from their joint projects. Insiders say she began sleeping in the guest room and even told her team to prepare for major changes. But the public didn't know any of this. They saw Yandi smiling in posts, pretending everything was fine, while Mendices appeared at events alone, always looking distracted. Behind the facade, the marriage was collapsing. Then came the moment that no one could have predicted. Mendices disappeared for a weekend, claiming he was traveling for work. But Tamar's fans noticed something odd. She was posting stories from a luxury property in Atlanta, showing glimpses of a man's arm, a familiar watch, a voice in the background that sounded unmistakably like Mendices. It didn't take long for fans to connect the dots. "He's with Tamar," one comment read. "That's Yandi's man." Another said, the scandal was snowballing, and by the time Yandi saw those clips, the betrayal was undeniable. Sources say Yandi confronted Mendices that Sunday night. She waited for him in the living room. Lights off, just silence when he walked in. He looked startled, like a kid caught sneaking in after curfew. She said softly, "Tell me the truth before the world tells me first." Mendices hesitated, then whispered, "I didn't mean for this to happen." It was all she needed to hear. Yandi stood up, grabbed her bag, and said, "Then it's already happened." She walked out before he could stop her. The next day, Tamar was photographed at a restaurant smiling, her phone buzzing non-stop. Insiders claim she had no idea Yandi had already left. Tamar believed Mendices was free now, that this was the beginning of something new. But to everyone else, it looked like the end of everything. And just when fans thought the story couldn't get any crazier, the video appeared, the one that changed everything. A 37-second clip that showed Tamar and Mendices in what looked like a private wedding ceremony. It's said that the ceremony wasn't meant to be public. It was supposed to be symbolic, a secret moment shared only between them. But someone inside the circle recorded it. Maybe out of envy, maybe for money. No one knows for sure. What's certain is that the second that footage leaked, it went viral. Within minutes, headlines exploded. Mendices marries Tamar in secret ceremony. Yandi walks out. Fans demand answers. And that's when the real chaos began. Tamar's team went silent. Mendices' phone went off. Yandi deleted every recent picture with him from her feed. Blogs were refreshing every second for new updates, and fans couldn't decide who to blame. Half the internet sided with Yandi, calling Tamar the ultimate homewrecker, while the other half claimed Yandi had been checked out for years. Even close friends of the couple started choosing sides. One insider said, "You could feel the tension. People were scared to pick up calls because no one knew whose name would leak next." And that's when Mendices made the biggest mistake of all. He tried to defend himself. He went live, looking exhausted, trying to downplay the wedding video as a misunderstanding. But fans weren't buying it. They zoomed in on every frame of the clip, analyzing the rings, the decorations, even the officiant's voice. "That's not a misunderstanding," one viewer wrote. "That's a vow." Tamar stayed silent, posting only a cryptic story that said, "Love don't need permission." Yandi, on the other hand, was done pretending. She posted a photo of herself in her car with the caption, "Walking away isn't weakness, it's freedom." That post got over 500,000 likes in hours. The internet was now fully on her side. People called her the Queen of Grace, praising her for not going low despite the betrayal. But behind those calm captions, Yandi was broken. She had invested years into that relationship, raised his kids, held him down through prison time and public scrutiny. And now, after everything, she was being humiliated by the very person she built her life around. What the public didn't know yet, she built her life around. What the public didn't know was that Yandi wasn't just walking away emotionally, she was preparing to legally cut ties. Her lawyer had already started drafting documents. One close friend said, "She's not coming back. This time, it's final." Meanwhile, Tamar and Mendices were still tangled in their own fantasy, unaware that their secret love story was about to turn into a nightmare neither of them could control. Because behind every leak, there's a motive. And this one, it came from someone who wanted revenge. Within 24 hours of the leaked footage, the internet had gone completely out of control. Every gossip page, every podcast, every fan account was dissecting the secret wedding. Some claimed it happened weeks ago. Others said it was staged for clout, but no one had the full story. And in the middle of all that noise, Tamar decided to post a picture that only made things worse. It was a black and white shot of two hands intertwined, both wearing rings, with the caption "Forever Energy." She didn't tag Mendices, but everyone knew. The internet erupted. Tamar just confirmed it. One user commented, "This is insane." Within minutes, Yandi's name began trending again, and the narrative shifted from speculation to confirmation. Mendices had really married Tamar. Behind the scenes, it was even messier. According to one insider, Mendices had been begging Tamar not to post anything until he handled things privately. But Tamar, emotional and impulsive, felt like she deserved to live her truth. She told a friend, "Why should I hide love? I've hidden enough pain in my life." What she didn't realize was that her version of love was about to destroy what little was left of Mendices' reputation. Brand deals were on hold. Production teams for upcoming appearances started pulling out, saying they didn't want to be involved in personal drama. And still, Tamar stood by him, believing they could ride the wave together. Meanwhile, Yandi was done being quiet. She finally broke her silence in an exclusive interview that dropped like a bombshell. Sitting in a dimly lit studio, she spoke calmly but firmly. "You give your whole heart to someone. You think you're building something solid. And then you find out the foundation was cracked the whole time." She didn't mention names, but everyone knew who she was talking about. The host tried to push for details, asking, "So are you saying it's over?" And Yandi replied, "It's been over. I just didn't realize it until the internet told me." Her composure made it even more powerful. The clip went viral within an hour, and fans flooded the comments with messages of support. Tamar watched that interview in silence. People close to her say she felt torn, guilty, but also defensive. She told her assistant, "I didn't steal nobody's husband. He came to me broken, and I gave him peace." But peace was the last thing she got. Because the next day, Yandy's best friend Kimbella decided to jump into the fire. She went live on Instagram and said, "Let's tell the truth, Mendices has been playing both sides for months. Tamar ain't innocent. But Yandy's not the only one he's lied to." The comments exploded. Fans demanded proof. And that's when Kimbella dropped the ultimate Resita series of text screenshots showing Mendices begging Yandy for another chance just 2 days before the wedding video leaked. Those screenshots shattered everything. In one message, Mendices wrote, "I don't want to lose my family. I made a mistake." In another, he said, "They don't mean anything. I just needed space." The internet went wild. People started calling Tamar the rebound bride, accusing her of rushing into something that wasn't even real. Her fans fought back, saying she didn't owe anyone an explanation, but the damage was done. Suddenly, Mendices was the villain in both women's stories. Producers from Love and Hip Hop couldn't resist. They reached out to all three of them, Yandy, Tamar, and Mendices, hoping to bring the chaos on screen. The offer was huge, but Yandy declined. She told them, "I'm not turning my heartbreak into ratings." Tamar, on the other hand, saw it as an opportunity to tell her truth. She even teased it in a post. "Sometimes you gotta show the world your scars before they use them against you." Fans speculated that a spin-off or reunion episode was in the works. And for a brief moment, it looked like Mendices and Tamar were about to cash in on the drama. But karma doesn't wait for contracts. Just as they were preparing to make their first joint appearance, a new video surfaced, one that changed the narrative again. It was shot the same night as the secret wedding, but from a different angle. This one showed Mendices arguing with someone off camera right before the ceremony started. His voice was tense, angry, almost panicked. "I'm not ready for this," he said. The voice behind the camera replied, "Too late now. She's coming." Fans speculated it was one of Tamar's friends pushing him to go through with it. The clip painted him not as a man in love, but a man trapped in his own bad decisions. Tamar's team scrambled to do damage control, claiming the video was heavily edited, but fans weren't convinced. Even those who had defended her started questioning the story. If he didn't want to do it, why force it? One comment read, "This whole thing looks fake." Another said, "She wanted a fairy tale. He wanted an escape." And Yandy, she didn't say a word. She just posted a picture of herself and her kids with the caption, "Peace is expensive, but it's worth the price." It became one of her most shared posts ever. Meanwhile, Mendices was spiraling. Sources say he felt trapped between two women and two versions of himself. The loyal husband who wanted to make things right, and the reckless man who couldn't resist chaos. He stopped showing up for appearances, ignored calls from producers, and started avoiding social media altogether. Friends said he was drinking more, isolating himself, and refusing to accept that he had lost both women in the process. Tamar tried to hold on, visiting him, posting vague affirmations like love is patience and healing takes time, but even she could see the distance growing. The turning point came during a heated phone call that insiders later described as the final blow. Tamar accused him of still being in love with Yandy. "Every time you say her name, your voice changes," she said. Mendices didn't deny it. He just said, "You don't understand what we've been through." That silence after his words was heavy enough to end everything. Tamar hung up, blocked his number, and went live later that night, tears streaming as she said, "Sometimes, love is just another word for lessons." Fans filled the chat with comments, some supportive, some cruel, but one thing was clear. Whatever forever energy they had was fading fast. But it wasn't over yet. The story was about to take another shocking turn. Because while Tamar was heartbroken and Mendices was disappearing from the spotlight, someone from inside the wedding circle had started selling private messages to the blogs. Messages that revealed something even Yandy didn't know: the ceremony wasn't legally binding. There was no marriage license, no paperwork, nothing official. It was a staged commitment ceremony planned by Tamar herself to manifest their future together. The revelation hit the internet like a storm. So the wedding was fake? Fans asked. She made him do it. Others called it the most manipulative plot twist in reality TV history. And as the truth spread, everything began to unravel in public. Tamar went silent again. Mendices disappeared completely, and Yandy finally stepped back into her power. She released a statement saying, "Closure doesn't come from apologies, it comes from understanding who deserves your peace." The audience had picked their side. But the story wasn't done, because what no one realized then was that the person who leaked every video, every photo, and every message wasn't an outsider. It was someone they all trusted, someone who had been quietly watching the chaos unfold, waiting for the perfect moment to reveal the final twist. By now, The story had transcended the usual gossip circuits. It wasn't just politics or social media, it had become a full-blown cultural phenomenon. Late-night comedians were crafting entire monologues around it. TikTok creators were dramatizing snippets of texts and voicemails. And fans were creating memes imagining the JD-Erika showdown. Even mainstream news outlets were forced to cover it, albeit cautiously, trying to separate fact from fiction in a situation that defied clarity. Inside JD's household was that Yandi wasn't just walking away emotionally, she was preparing to legally cut ties. Her lawyer had already started drafting documents. One close friend said, "She's not coming back. This time, it's final." Meanwhile, Tamar and Mendices were still tangled in their own fantasy, unaware that their secret love story was about to turn into a nightmare neither of them could control. Because behind every leak, there's a motive, and this one, it came from someone who wanted revenge. Within 24 hours of the leaked footage, the internet had gone completely out of control. Every gossip page, every podcast, every fan account was dissecting the secret wedding. Some claimed it happened weeks ago, others said it was staged for clout, but no one had the full story. And in the middle of all that noise, Tamar decided to post a picture that only made things worse. It was a black and white shot of two hands intertwined, both wearing rings, with the caption "Forever Energy." She didn't tag Mendices, but everyone knew. The internet erupted. Tamar just confirmed it. One user commented, "This is insane." Within minutes, Yandi's name began trending again, and the narrative shifted from speculation to confirmation Mendices had really married Tamar. Behind the scenes, it was even messier. According to one insider, Mendices had been begging Tamar not to post anything until he handled things privately. But Tamar, emotional and impulsive, felt like she deserved to live her truth. She told a friend, "Why should I hide love? I've hidden enough pain in my life." What she didn't realize was that her version of love was about to destroy what little was left of Mendices' reputation. Brand deals were on hold. Production teams for upcoming appearances started pulling out, saying they didn't want to be involved in personal drama. And still, Tamar stood by him, believing they could ride the wave together. Meanwhile, Yandi was done being quiet. She finally broke her silence in an exclusive interview that dropped like a bombshell. Sitting in a dimly lit studio, she spoke calmly but firmly. You give your whole heart to someone. You think you're building something solid. And then you find out the foundation was cracked the whole time. She didn't mention names, but everyone knew who she was talking about. The host tried to push for details, asking, "So are you saying it's over?" And Yandi replied, "It's been over. I just didn't realize it until the internet told me." Her composure made it even more powerful. The clip went viral within an hour, and fans flooded the comments with messages of support. Tamar watched that interview in silence. People close to her say she felt torn, guilty, but also defensive. She told her assistant, "I didn't steal nobody's husband. He came to me broken, and I gave him peace." But peace was the last thing she got. Because the next day, Yandi's best friend Kimbella decided to jump into the fire. She went live on Instagram and said, "Let's tell the truth, Mendices has been playing both sides for months. Tamar ain't innocent. But Yandi's not the only one he's lied to." The comments exploded. Fans demanded proof. And that's when Kimbella dropped the ultimate Resita series of text screenshots showing Mendices begging Yandi for another chance just 2 days before the wedding video leaked. Those screenshots shattered everything. In one message, Mendices wrote, "I don't want to lose my family. I made a mistake." In another, he said, "They don't mean anything. I just needed space." The internet went wild. People started calling Tamar the rebound bride, accusing her of rushing into something that wasn't even real. Her fans fought back, saying she didn't owe anyone an explanation, but the damage was done. Suddenly, Mendices was the villain in both women's stories. Producers from Love and Hip Hop couldn't resist. They reached out to all three of them, Yandi, Tamar, and Mendices, hoping to bring the chaos on screen. The offer was huge, but Yandi declined. She told them, "I'm not turning my heartbreak into ratings." Tamar, on the other hand, saw it as an opportunity to tell her truth. She even teased it in a post. "Sometimes you gotta show the world your scars before they use them against you." Fans speculated that a spin-off or reunion episode was in the works. And for a brief moment, it looked like Mendices and Tamar were about to cash in on the drama. But karma doesn't wait for contracts. Just as they were preparing to make their first joint appearance, a new video surfaced, one that changed the narrative again. It was shot the same night as the secret wedding, but from a different angle. This one showed Mendices arguing with someone off camera right before the ceremony started. His voice was tense, angry, almost panicked. "I'm not ready for this," he said. The voice behind the camera replied, Too late now. She's coming. Fans speculated it was one of Tamer's friends pushing him to go through with it. The clip painted him not as a man in love, but a man trapped in his own bad decisions. Tamer's team scrambled to do damage control, claiming the video was heavily edited, but fans weren't convinced. Even those who had defended her started questioning the story. If he didn't want to do it, why force it? One comment read, "This whole thing looks fake." Another said, "She wanted a fairy tale. He wanted an escape." And Yen, she didn't say a word. She just posted a picture of herself and her kids with the caption, "Peace is expensive, but it's worth the price." It became one of her most shared posts ever. Meanwhile, Mendices was spiraling. Sources say he felt trapped between two women and two versions of himself. The loyal husband who wanted to make things right, and the reckless man who couldn't resist chaos. He stopped showing up for appearances, ignored calls from producers, and started avoiding social media altogether. Friends said he was drinking more, isolating himself, and refusing to accept that he had lost both women in the process. Tamar tried to hold on, visiting him, posting vague affirmations like love is patience and healing takes time, but even she could see the distance growing. The turning point came during a heated phone call that insiders later described as the final blow. Tamer accused him of still being in love with Yandi. "Every time you say her name, your voice changes," she said. Mendices didn't deny it. He just said, "You don't understand what we've been through." That silence after his words was heavy enough to end everything. Tamar hung up, blocked his number, and went live later that night, tears streaming as she said, "Sometimes, love is just another word for lessons." Fans filled the chat with comments, some supportive, some cruel, but one thing was clear. Whatever forever energy they had was fading fast. But it wasn't over yet. The story was about to take another shocking turn, because while Tamar was heartbroken and Mendices was disappearing from the spotlight, someone from inside the wedding circle had started selling private messages to the blogs. Messages that revealed something even Yandi didn't know: the ceremony wasn't legally binding. There was no marriage license, no paperwork, nothing official. It was a staged commitment ceremony planned by Tamar herself to manifest their future together. The revelation hit the internet like a storm. So the wedding was fake? Fans asked. She made him do it. Others called it the most manipulative plot twist in reality TV history. And as the truth spread, everything began to unravel in public. Tamer went silent again, Mendices disappeared completely, and Yandi finally stepped back into her power. She released a statement saying, "Closure doesn't come from apologies, it comes from understanding who deserves your peace." The audience had picked their side. But the story wasn't done, because what no one realized then was that the person who leaked every video, every photo, and every message wasn't an outsider. It was someone they all trusted, someone who had been quietly watching the chaos unfold, waiting for the perfect moment to reveal the final twist. By now, the story had transcended the usual gossip circuits. It wasn't just politics or social media, it had become a full-blown cultural phenomenon. Late-night comedians were crafting entire monologues around it. TikTok creators were dramatizing snippets of texts and voicemails, and fans were creating memes imagining the JD Erika showdown. Even mainstream news outlets were forced to cover it, albeit cautiously, trying to separate fact from fiction in a situation that defied clarity. Inside JD's household, tension had become a constant companion. Usha had returned briefly to pick up her personal belongings, the children nowhere in sight, leaving JD alone in the sprawling home that suddenly felt cold and empty. He wandered from room to room, replaying conversations in his mind, wondering at what point decisions had led to this disaster. He knew that even if he tried to regain control of the narrative, the public had already made its judgment. Erika, meanwhile, was becoming a symbol of defiance to some and scandal to others. She granted a private interview to an independent journalist, admitting, yes, there were moments of connection, of human weaknesses, but there was never malice intended. The journalist later leaked portions of the interview, creating a firestorm. Fans debated endlessly. Was she defending herself, or simply refusing to admit the affair? The ambiguity only deepened the intrigue, and the story spread across forums, podcasts, and late-night shows. Joe Rogan remained a silent observer publicly, though insiders revealed he was keeping meticulous notes of every development. Some claimed he'd offered advice to both JD and Erika privately, trying to navigate the fallout without causing further harm. Others suggested he may have withheld key evidence for leverage, a theory that fueled conspiracy-minded fans. The truth remained murky, but the effect was undeniable. Joe had become both narrator and character in this unfolding drama. Amid the chaos, unexpected allies appeared. A close friend of Yusha reached out publicly, tweeting, "She's stronger than anyone thinks. Don't underestimate her." The sentiment resonated with the public, and hashtags supporting Yusha trended across multiple platforms. Jade's attempts to respond only seemed to make matters worse, as every carefully worded statement was scrutinized, dissected, and criticized. The narrative was now firmly in the hands of public opinion. Tensions escalated further when leaked texts revealed that Erika had confronted JD privately weeks before Joe's podcast aired, warning him that their interactions were becoming too risky. One text read, "This could destroy us. JD, I don't want to be the reason for it." Jade's response, "I can't stop what we have, and neither can you," became the centerpiece of online discussion. Fans were divided. Some saw it as a confession of love, others as evidence of betrayal. The media frenzy reached its peak when a shadowy video surfaced showing JD and Erika at a secluded cabin in the woods. It was blurry, the voices indistinct, but the presence of both figures was unmistakable. Speculation ran rampant. Were they meeting for political strategy, personal reasons, or both? Every angle fueled the narrative, and with each new post, the tension between public perception and private reality deepened. Inside Erika's circle, the fallout was chaotic. Timothy Kirk had returned to the scene briefly, issuing a statement about trust, deception, and accountability, though he offered no specifics. Erika's social media presence became a platform for cryptic posts, blending personal reflection with philosophical musings, keeping her followers guessing. Every post, every pause, every deleted story became a clue, sparking fresh debate across online communities. JD, feeling trapped, reportedly reached out to high-level advisors, discussing damage control strategies. Some recommended complete media silence, others pushed for public appearances to quell rumors, but nothing seemed effective. Each attempt to assert control was undermined by new leaks, fan speculation, and the ever-present shadow of Joe Rogan's initial revelation. As days turned into weeks, the story continued evolving. New leaks hinted at the involvement of additional figures within political and media circles, though identities remained vague. Insiders whispered of agreements and understandings that had been violated, suggesting that the implications of JD and Erika's actions extended far beyond personal scandal. The complexity of the narrative made it impossible for casual observers to keep up, further feeding the cycle of obsession and analysis. Amid all this, Usha's demeanor remained consistently composed. Though close friends described her as haunted yet determined, she focused on her children and personal well-being, making calculated public appearances that underscored her stability while reinforcing the contrast with the chaos surrounding JD and Erika. Her silence, strategic and powerful, became a central element of the unfolding drama, with many seeing her as the ultimate arbiter of the story's moral dimension. One night, Joe Rogan was invited to a private dinner with several influential figures in conservative media. Though cameras weren't allowed, attendees later described the atmosphere as tense, almost electric. Joe reportedly addressed the situation in a calm, matter-of-fact manner, emphasizing the unpredictability of human behavior and the dangers of public scrutiny. His comments were later leaked, providing fresh fuel for fan debates, and reinforcing the perception that he wielded significant influence over the narrative without ever explicitly stating his hand. Erika's attempts to regain control of her image took another twist when she collaborated with a well-known media strategist to craft a limited series of posts reflecting on personal growth, accountability, and lessons learned. While intended to humanize her, the post sparked further discussion, with fans analyzing every sentence for hidden admissions or deflections. Every move seemed to have unintended consequences, adding layers of complexity to an already convoluted situation. Jade's position, meanwhile, became increasingly precarious. Political supporters wavered, citing concerns over optics and integrity. Fundraising efforts slowed as major donors sought clarity. Internally, team members argued over whether to double down on denials, issue confessions, or pivot entirely. The lack of consensus created tension within his inner circle, mirroring the public chaos consuming his personal life. As public interest showed no signs of waning, the narrative expanded to include potential ramifications for future elections, influencer partnerships, and media dynamics. The story had grown beyond its origins, intertwining personal, political, and professional domains in a way few scandals had managed to achieve. Commentators noted that the lines between truth, perception, and performance had blurred completely, leaving the public to interpret events largely through social media fragments, leaked audio, and selective interviews. Amid this chaos, a final, unforeseen development loomed on the horizon. An anonymous source hinted at a hidden recording that could potentially redefine the narrative entirely. Speculation about its content ran rampant, with fans, journalists, and insiders all theorizing what it might contain. The mere suggestion of this recording intensified the already feverish atmosphere, making it clear that the saga of J.D. Vance, Erika Kirk, and Joe Rogan was far from over, and that the next chapter could shock even those who believed they understood the full story. The days following the anonymous tip about the hidden recording were some of the tensest anyone had witnessed. Rumor mills spun wildly, and the narrative surrounding J.D. Vance and Erika Kirk took on an almost mythic quality. Fans debated endlessly, online, speculating about what the recording might reveal, whether it would confirm every suspicion, exonerate one party, or plunge the scandal into even deeper chaos. Every new post, every snippet of information, was dissected, analyzed, and amplified, pushing the story beyond simple personal drama and into a spectacle that seemed to consume everyone involved. Inside JD's camp, panic had reached a fever pitch. Advisors convened emergency meetings, plotting strategy after strategy. One senior aide proposed that JD publicly acknowledge mistakes while simultaneously framing the narrative around political pressure and media sensationalism. Another, more cautious, warned that any public statement could backfire, feeding the frenzy further. JD himself alternated between silence, phone calls with advisors, and long, solitary walks through his empty home, trying to make sense of the storm engulfing his life. Every message from Usha, every tweet about Erika, felt like a blow he couldn't anticipate or control. Erika, meanwhile, embraced a different strategy. She reached out privately to journalists. The alleged affair. "I want to tell my story on my terms," she told one contact. "People love to speculate, but no one really knows what happened." Yet each carefully crafted message was leaked almost immediately, causing new waves of speculation and increasing scrutiny from the public. She became, in effect, both the protagonist and the antagonist in a narrative spinning wildly out of her control. Usha Vance continued her silent campaign. By this point, her measured appearances and carefully controlled social media posts had made her a symbol of composure amidst chaos. Yet close friends described her as exhausted and haunted, dealing privately with a mixture of betrayal, anger, and protective instincts for her children. Every decision she made was scrutinized, and the world speculated whether she would officially separate, issue a public statement, or take legal action. Each day she remained silent, the tension intensified. Joe Rogan watched from a different vantage point. Though he had tried to maintain distance publicly, insiders claimed he was monitoring every development closely. His perspective, informed by both his original revelation and his network of contacts, allowed him to see the broader implications of the scandal. Some wondered if he would eventually comment, appear in a new episode, or release information that could definitively shape the public's perception. For now, however, he remained silent, his restraint only increasing anticipation and speculation. The public, of course, had seized the narrative completely. Late-night talk shows ran segments dissecting every audio clip. Podcast hosts debated motives, and social media influencers staged reenactments that blurred the lines between reality and fiction. Every image, every phrase, every leaked message was analyzed for hidden meaning. Hashtags trended, new rumors emerged daily, and fans constructed elaborate theories about timelines, intentions, and possible consequences. The story had evolved beyond personal scandal. It was now a cultural touchstone, a symbol of the intersection of private lives and public obsession. In the midst of this, new footage surfaced from a private event where JD and Erika had allegedly crossed paths. The clip was brief, but the tension in their interactions was palpable. Viewers pored over gestures, body language, and brief exchanges, trying to decode intention and meaning. For some, it confirmed the speculation of an emotional entanglement. For others, it reinforced a narrative of professional collaboration gone awry. The ambiguity kept people hooked, each interpretation more dramatic than the last. As speculation reached a fever pitch, rumors about the elusive hidden recording intensified. Leaks suggested it contained not only conversations between JD and Erika but also indications of premeditated strategy to manage perception, including potential coordination with media contacts. If authentic, the recording could dramatically shift the story, confirming theories that some of the public narrative had been influenced intentionally, raising questions about manipulation, accountability, and truth. Amid this, JD supporters began to fracture. Political allies debated whether to continue backing him publicly or distance themselves to preserve their reputations. Private communications revealed a sense of desperation within his camp, as they struggled to contain the fallout and maintain credibility. Meanwhile, Erika's network of advisors counseled her on narrative control, emphasizing the need to appear composed, reflective, and authoritative, yet sympathetic, a delicate balancing act in a narrative increasingly dominated by chaos and speculation. The interplay between private actions and public perception created new layers of tension. Usha's decisions, Erika's statements, Jade's attempts to navigate both personal and professional repercussions, and Joe's silent but influential presence created a dynamic that seemed impossible to untangle. Each participant's choices had ripple effects, amplifying scrutiny and speculation, and creating a sense that the story was spiraling beyond anyone's control. Fans, journalists, and commentators alike became participants in a live narrative, theorizing about motives, interpreting gestures, and predicting next moves. Forums were flooded with analysis. Podcasts devoted entire episodes to dissecting the smallest details, and late-night hosts mocked, praised, and speculated with equal fervor. The story had become a cultural phenomenon, consuming attention across every media platform and leaving all involved in a state of constant vigilance. Amid all this, a key question loomed. When, if ever, would the hidden recording surface, and what would it reveal? Speculation was rampant. Some imagined it would confirm a full affair. Others thought it might expose strategic manipulation, and a few believed it could implicate Joe in ways no one anticipated. The uncertainty heightened the tension and created an almost unbearable anticipation. With the narrative teetering on the edge of revelation at every moment, private tensions escalated as well. Reports suggested that JD and Erika had multiple confrontations over the leaked messages, recordings, and public perception. Arguments reportedly involved accusations, pleas, and recriminations, painting a vivid picture of emotional turmoil. These encounters, though private, fueled further speculation once hints leaked online, reinforcing the narrative of a complex, multifaceted scandal where every action had consequences beyond the personal sphere. As the saga continued, it became increasingly clear that this was no longer a story about a single revelation. It had evolved into a multi-layered drama involving ambition, betrayal, public scrutiny, and the interplay of personal and political stakes. Each participant, Usha, JD, Erika, and Joe, was enmeshed in a web of public perception and private consequence, with every decision scrutinized, analyzed, and interpreted through the lens of an eager, relentless audience. By the end of this chapter in the story, the message was unmistakable. The drama was far from over. The hidden recording, the ongoing speculation, and the personal stakes of everyone involved meant that the public would continue to watch, debate, and dissect every detail. The lives of JD Vance, Erika Kirk, Usha Vance, and Joe Rogan had been irrevocably transformed. Their every move now part of a narrative that had grown beyond any one person's control, and the anticipation of the next revelation kept fans, media, and insiders alike on the edge of their seats. The intensity of the situation escalated further when a new leak suggested that additional parties had knowledge of the unfolding events. Whispers of private recordings, text messages, and even intercepted emails began to circulate, suggesting that JD and Erika's interactions were more intricate than anyone had imagined. The internet exploded with speculation, debates, and theories, with social media users piecing together timelines and motives, creating an ecosystem of conjecture that far outstripped any verified information. Inside JD's inner circle, tension reached near breaking point. Advisors debated endlessly about whether to engage with the media or maintain strict silence. One senior staffer reportedly said, "We can't just let this fester. Every day without a response makes it worse." Another countered, "Every statement is a potential trap. Silence might be the only safe strategy." JD himself alternated between private calls, reviewing media coverage, and moments of reflection alone in his home. The gravity of his personal and political predicament weighed heavily on him, and every interaction seemed fraught with potential disaster. Erika, meanwhile, took a more active role in shaping her narrative. She began granting exclusive interviews to smaller outlets, carefully controlling the flow of information while maintaining an air of vulnerability. "I never intended for any of this to happen," she told one journalist. "But life isn't simple, and people are complex." Her statements were analyzed endlessly, each word parsed for hidden meaning, inconsistencies, or hints of culpability. The balance between public sympathy and public scrutiny was delicate, and each misstep could tip the narrative against her. Vance, maintaining her measured approach, remained mostly silent. However, her presence at public events and her selective statements were enough to command attention. She was photographed attending charity functions and appearing at school events for her children. Each appearance meticulously noted and analyzed by fans and media alike. Her restraint became a counterpoint to the chaos surrounding JD and Erika, positioning her as a stabilizing figure amidst relentless speculation. The media frenzy was relentless. Late-night talk shows dedicated segments to dissecting interactions, while podcasts devoted hours to analyzing social media posts, leaked messages, and cryptic statements. Fans created timelines, pieced together interactions, and even speculated about potential undisclosed meetings. The narrative had taken on a life of its own, evolving beyond the original revelation to encompass a complex web of relationships, intentions, and public perception. Joe Rogan's role in the saga became increasingly scrutinized. Insiders claimed he had attempted to mediate in private, but his involvement, whether direct or indirect, was magnified in the public eye. The speculation about his motives, awareness, and influence intensified, with some suggesting he had more knowledge than he disclosed, and others insisting he had simply become an unwitting witness to events that spiraled out of control. Tensions between JD and Erika reportedly intensified in private encounters. Sources suggested heated arguments over leaked messages and public perception, with both parties expressing frustration, regret, and conflicting emotions. These private confrontations, though largely unseen by the public, were widely speculated upon once fragments of information were leaked, fueling further discussion and debate. Amid this turmoil, the public continued to dissect every detail. Hashtags trended, fan theories multiplied, and analysts attempted to reconstruct the sequence of events. Every photograph, social media post, and statement became fodder for speculation, illustrating how deeply intertwined personal, professional, and public spheres had become. The scandal had evolved into a cultural phenomenon, transcending its origins and becoming a subject of widespread fascination. The rumored hidden recording remained a focal point of anticipation. Speculation suggested it might contain conversations implicating multiple parties or confirming suspicions about intent and strategy. The mere suggestion of its existence kept audiences engaged, with anticipation building around when or if it would be released. The uncertainty created a continuous cycle of analysis, rumor, and media coverage, sustaining interest and engagement across multiple platforms. Political implications loomed as well. Jade's supporters debated the impact of the scandal on future campaigns, fundraising, and public perception. Internal communications revealed frustration and fear, as every new leak or interpretation of events threatened to undermine strategic planning. Erika's team simultaneously navigated public relations challenges, balancing narrative control with attempts to maintain personal credibility and composure. Amid all this, Usha's role as a stabilizing figure was increasingly emphasized. Her restraint, public appearances, and measured statements provided a counter-narrative to the chaos, framing her as a figure of resilience and integrity. The contrast between her composure and the public unraveling of JD and Erika's narratives created a compelling dynamic that captured widespread attention and speculation. As the story continued, each new development was amplified across media channels, social networks, and public discourse. Leaks, interviews, and private statements were magnified, dissected, and reinterpreted, creating a perpetual cycle of narrative evolution. The interplay between personal actions, public perception, and media coverage reinforced the sense that the scandal was ongoing, with each participant navigating a web of consequences that extended far beyond the initial revelations. The saga had, by this point, become far more than a personal scandal. It encompassed political strategy, media influence, public perception, and the complex dynamics of personal relationships under scrutiny. Each participant, JD, Erika, Usha, and Joe, was enmeshed in a narrative that evolved daily, with every decision influencing both public discourse and private consequences. Anticipation for the hidden recording, along with speculation about additional undisclosed interactions, sustained interest and ensured that the story's momentum showed no signs of waning, as fans, media, and insiders alike awaited the next development. The story remained unpredictable, layered, and compelling. The combination of personal drama, public intrigue, and media amplification created a scenario where each participant's actions had cascading effects, reinforcing the narrative's complexity and the sense that the saga was far from reaching its conclusion. The anticipation of revelations, confessions, or further complications kept audiences engaged, ensuring that the scandal remained a dominant topic across multiple platforms. And so, after everything that's unfolded, the shocking revelations, the leaked recordings, the arguments, the private confrontations, and the public spectacle, it's impossible not to wonder, what will happen next? Will J.D. Vance find a way to reclaim his personal and political life, or has the damage gone too deep? Will Erika Kirk finally have her side of the story fully recognized, or will public opinion continue to define her narrative? And where does Joe Rogan fit into all of this? Willing participant, reluctant observer, or something in between? These questions linger, haunting every headline, every social media thread, and every heated discussion among fans and followers around the globe. The fallout has been monumental, and the story continues to evolve in ways few could have anticipated. Fans are divided, emotions ran high, and the family was left divided in ways that will likely take months, if not years, to resolve. The public obsession with every word, every gesture, every text, and every meeting has reached an almost unparalleled level. Each day brings new speculation, new angles, and new theories. And yet, despite all the leaks, all the interviews, and all the commentary, one thing remains clear. The story is far from over. The drama has transcended its original players, becoming a cultural event in its own right. Forums are filled with endless debates, hashtags trend daily, and podcasts attempt to dissect each minor development for meaning. Every leaked snippet, every private confrontation, and every cryptic social media post adds fuel to a fire that refuses to die down. The public is insatiable, hungry for insight, confirmation, and the next big twist. Every angle, every interpretation, feels like it could change the course of how this saga is remembered. As you follow this story, it's easy to get caught up in the whirlwind of speculation. Maybe you find yourself picking sides, questioning motives, or trying to imagine what you would do in their shoes. The reality is, human behavior is messy, unpredictable, and often contradictory. JD, Erika, Usha, and Joe each acted from their own perspectives, driven by emotion, ambition, or principle. And the collision of those perspectives has created a spectacle that is equal parts tragedy, intrigue, and obsession. So here's where you come in. Right now, watching this unfold, your opinion matters. What do you think happened behind closed doors? Who do you believe is telling the truth? And who might be shaping the narrative for personal gain? Do you think Joe Rogan had more influence on the unfolding events than he publicly admits? And what about Usha Vance? Can composure and silence outweigh public scrutiny? Or is her story still incomplete? These questions are open for debate, and your voice, your interpretation, your perspective, is part of the ongoing conversation. We've witnessed betrayal, heartbreak, strategy, and public exposure on a scale that feels almost cinematic. The stakes were personal, the implications professional, and the consequences cultural. Each player has been forced to navigate a minefield of public attention while managing private emotions that are just as explosive. And through it all, the story continues, evolving with every day, every leak, every interview, and every social media post. Now, it's your chance to weigh in. Comment below with what you think about the scandal. Who do you side with? Whose actions were justified? And who do you believe manipulated events the most? Do you think the hidden recordings, if they ever surface, will completely change the narrative? Or have we changed the narrative? Or have already seen the full extent of what happened? Your thoughts and opinions are exactly what keep this conversation alive. Because every perspective adds a layer of understanding or further complicates an already tangled web of events. If you've been following the story closely, you know that no detail is too small to matter. A look, a text, a hesitation in an interview, anything could hold the key to understanding the larger picture. Sharing your insights, theories, and interpretations not only adds to the discussion, but keeps the community engaged and the story alive. The saga is far from finished, and every comment contributes to the unfolding narrative. And if you want to make sure you never miss a development, hit that subscribe button now. Turn on notifications, so you'll be among the first to know when new information emerges, when hidden details come to light, or when someone finally speaks out. Following closely allows you to see the story evolve in real time, to witness the shifts in public perception, and to analyze every revelation as it happens. Your engagement ensures you're part of the conversation, part of the unfolding drama. Liking this video also matters. It helps the story reach a wider audience, drawing in more perspectives, more debates, and more analysis. Each like contributes to the visibility of the narrative, ensuring that the scandal remains a topic of cultural interest. Sharing your opinions, engaging with others, and spreading the discussion only amplifies the impact of the story and gives you a front row seat to every twist and turn that unfolds. And finally, don't just watch passively and comment, discuss, and debate. Share your theories about what really happened, who is telling the truth, and how the story might evolve next. Do you think reconciliation is possible, or has the damage become irreparable? How do you interpret Joe Rogan's role, Usha's silence, or Erika's attempts at narrative control? Every perspective enriches the discussion, providing insight and keeping the drama alive for everyone following along. The saga of J.D. Vance, Erika Kirk, Usha Vance, and Joe Rogan is far from over. It's a story of human complexity, emotional stakes, public scrutiny, and unrelenting speculation. Every day brings new developments, new interpretations, and new questions. Your participation through likes, subscriptions, and comments is what keeps this story vibrant, dynamic, and ever-evolving. Don't miss your chance to be part of it. Engage now, because the next twist could change everything, and you'll want to be there from the very first moment when it happens.